Right. Okay. We are live. So welcome everyone. Welcome to everyone who's decided to join us on this fine morning. We are going to discuss the future of upskilling, how to cultivate the modern mindset today. We should take about an hour. And the plan is to do the introductions. We will then have a lovely discussion, as always. Jenny and I always have some really, really good discussions. And then we will allow some time for questions, maybe 10, 15 minutes at the end of the session. Let's maybe start with introductions. I guess, Jenny, over to you.
Thanks, Martin. It's so lovely to be here chatting with you this morning on this fine
Yes.
last day of May morning. So, yes, hello everyone. I'm Jenny Mushwar. I head up the learning and development team and strategies at Sumo Group. So, Sumo Group make interactive games and creative services as well for the entertainment industry. I've been in learning and development now for just over 15 years. I know I don't look it, but that's how it goes. Kind of work for a variety of brands within the UK and also internationally as well, which is really interesting. And then I ran my own business within the mix of it for 4 years as well. And that business was all around empowering women with confidence and inner strength as well.
Amazing. Thank you, Jenny. So a bit about me. Martin, I'm the Senior Customer Success Manager at Thrive. I am a learning and development person through and through. I spent 5 or 6 years in various learning positions. I then moved into customer success, and I have worked for and I've always stayed in this sort of learning platform space. And the best job I've ever had, really fascinating. I work with a number of fantastic clients, and obviously Sumo Digital is one of them. So I guess that's it from me. Shall we jump into the conversation, Jenny? Let's talk about
Yeah.
the modern mindset and the future of upskilling. So, also, what I wanted to maybe mention, let me just take a detour here. Please feel free to post some questions in the comments. We will try to answer at least some of them at the end of the session. So, without further ado, Jenny, so maybe let's start by defining the terms. So, what is a modern mindset when it comes to upskilling? How is it different from the more traditional approaches?
So yeah, let's get straight into the nitty gritty, Martin. Ain't no
Yes.
fucking about. Let's 3 minutes in. Let's hit that big question. So, what is my view on modern L&D and upskilling? So I think we see report after report after report that's saying that CEOs and boards don't feel that they have the skills within their organization to meet their future needs. And if we were to rewind time, kind of during the 80s and 90s, education was lots of people had MBAs, education on, CVs, education on, job description. That was quite a big thing. So let's roll it back to that time and what was going on. Well, there was very much a basis around education, then work experience, and then those skills that I'm going to learn will then set me up as I go up onto a linear path. And we all know that is just not how things work now. We talk about breadth. We have a portfolio career. Everything is moving at a pace that actually want to have career opportunities, career breadth, career aspirations, which isn't necessarily up. It's about kind of experiences and, like I say, and opportunities and all the rest of it. Okay, so then what's happening here then in terms of L&D? Well, we're not the educators anymore. Do you know what, actually, I read a wonderful quote in a book the other day that said, as L&D, so we're heroes of our own story, but as L&D, we're not the heroes. We're not Batman. We're Alfred. And I think it's time that we started to think about that. So where that shift has come is then that technology is moving at such an incredible rate, but also the rate of learning is moving at such an incredible rate as well. I don't need to go to an educational establishment to meet all of my learning needs. I can also get it from TikTok. I can get it from LinkedIn, I can get it from YouTube, I can get it from Reddit, I can get it from Wikipedia, I can get it from ChatGPT, I can get it from all sorts of places very, very quickly. I don't need to be waiting for it. And spoiler alert, there is always going to be a skills gap because we are always changing. It just feels now that that gap has got bigger because the rate of change is getting quicker. And the expectation is also within a shorter period of time. Like, how many times do we get, hey, learning and development team, I need this, I need something on change management and I need it by Friday. I need it to be 15 minutes. Like, what? So, but that's because we're just so used to, well, I can find that out on, find me the age of, I don't know, like Prince Charles. Oh, I don't know it. Oh, just Google it. I don't know is not an answer anymore because there's an expectation that there's such a wealth of knowledge and information and learning out there that you should just be able to know it. So what does this now mean for a modern mindset? Well, to me, what a modern mindset looks like is that, for me, I kind of think of this as 3 layers. So the first layer is content. So if you like, that's our education. We're going to focus on the content. And that still has a place. And it's a more traditional approach, but it still has a place. Where does it have a place? Well, it has a place on stuff that you need everybody to really know about. So we're talking about compliance learning, stuff like that. We need you to know it. And here is the content that we need you to know to be part of this organization. There might be other things like how to use Google Drives or how to use that. There are some things, this is content driven. Traditional, but that it's still needed. You then move up to the next stage, which is more partnering. And for here, it's okay. So what is it? There are 3 questions that I ask here. You want some learning intervention. So let's get down into the nitty gritty of that. What is it that you want people to know? What is it that you want them to do? And what is it that you want them to feel as a direct result of this learning intervention? So that's stage 2. Stage 3, I call enterprise. And enterprise is when you're looking more at the direction of the organization or the direction of the department, that you're looking at it more holistically. Where is it then that also, so let's say, for instance, we need better collaboration. I think collaboration has come as a kind of a skill that has, particularly during the pandemic, has fast-tracked, that people talked about it far more than they did before. Well, where in the ecosystem then are we wanting to build that as a organization? Why is it important to us, and where are we ultimately heading? So what systemically also needs to happen in order for this approach to work? Because the training or the learning, the learning intervention, whatever it is that you might be doing, could be helpful, but it's going to be within a system. So what else within that system do we need to create? And it's my belief that the biggest thing within that is shared knowledge. Because shared knowledge is the thing that is the fastest way to get people upskilled at the rate that you're needing them to upskill. So when we're talking about traditional mindset is kind of, hi L&D, we have a need, and okay, let me get my shopping trolley, and let me get my tick list of things that we need some management training, and we need some communicate, and we need some customer service, and tick, 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 educational based. Moving to learning is available everywhere you look. So actually your basis of how do you create an ecosystem of shared knowledge and learning, to pull on that, that's where you're heading to, rather than spending all your time creating, checklisting, pushing out content, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. I guess I think of it in a slightly simpler way, but obviously we agree on that. Is like the traditional model is obviously still very valid, but it's more of the top-down approach where I know best what people have to learn when it comes to, as you said, processes, how to use the Google system and so on. And then the sort of the newest approaches are where we sort of focus a bit more on the learners. It's a more learner-centric approach where we sort of look at what interests they have and how they want to learn, and we sort of facilitate it basically.
And where are they learning now? Like we had a conversation. I've got someone on my team. She's amazing at Power BI. Where did she learn it? TikTok.
She is. Yeah.
Where are they
Absolutely.
learning it? Find
yeah.
that, bring that together in an ecosystem that allows that. And it's like, and the biggest thing is you need to make sure that you've got psychological safety, that people feel like that they are allowed to share and that they're free to share and that they'll be celebrated for sharing as well.
Absolutely. So when it comes to skills, I associate, or I think of the more traditional model when it comes to skill sets and skills more as top down and related to skills framework versus the sort of the bottom up model where the learners can sort of basically drive and assign any skills they want to their profiles. And so let's talk about this sort of the traditional model of the frameworks. What do you see as some of the challenges of the more traditional model, the top-down skill frameworks?
So I think we've probably all been there in L&D and HR, where it's like we want to create a skills matrix, and you go, here we go. This is like, wait, let's get 2 years under our belt that we're really going to start to work on this. And I think some of the pitfalls that is very easy to go into is that we start to make it incredibly specific. So rather than broader skills such as communication, influence, these are skills that, that are what I call like impact. So when you're starting out in your career, my communication would have been at a certain level. As I have moved up my career and have had different career opportunities, my communication has grown with that. And I've learned, of course, along the way through lots of different mediums, how to communicate. So this broadly, I'm more valuable as a resource because I've grown that skill than maybe when I started as more of a junior. But also when I started and we had acetate on an overhead projector for presenting. Now, when I'm talking about kind of more traditional skills measure, being able to draw was a skill. Like we went on training of how to draw stuff in the moment to make things, to make it appealing rather than just bullet point. Bullet point 1, what is leader versus manager? Actually drawing things, of course, the brain, when it develops, is able to take on imagery quicker than it can words. So, of course, we were taught then how to draw. Do I need drawing skills now? If that was in a skills matrix, how useful is it to me as a learning and development professional now? So this is the things that we see that we fall into the trap of when we start to get really specific around. You must know how to work an LMS system. Well, news like LMS systems have moved on. Oh God, now I've got to update our skills matrix. So now it's saying that you need to be able to manage an LXP system or an experience platform or a comms platform. When you're starting to get in this top-down model, can get very specific, and then it's out of date before you've even started. Particularly when we're talking about when we did previously, that the rate of change is continually getting faster. In your top-down models now of the skills matrix, where's AI in that? Have you put it in? Because it really should be there if we're getting specific. No. What instead we can say is to be a subject matter expert in emerging trends. Like that's something that is going to stand better the test of time than understand how to work articulate, for an example. So it's thinking about those broader impact rather than the specifics, because they're going to get out of date as soon as you publish them.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, and I really like. I guess this is a good example from your own organization where you created the skills are not just very technical and specific, but more broad. Exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about the history of sumo. So sumo is 20 years old this summer.
Yay!
So 20 years old. It's amazing. So when it first started, there were 12 people when they first started the business making video games, and of course that grew. But when they first started, you had artist, programmer, audio designer, production. there was no what we call disciplines. There was no subcategories within that. Broadly speaking, you were the artist, you're the programmer, you're the production, you're the designer. Now we're an organization of over 1,500 people, and video games as a technology has, again, over that period of time, changed. Like, so, and continues. The technology, you know, when the learning stops, we stop, right? I mean, it's a continuous learning and continuous different technology that comes out. So within that now, you have people that are more specialized. So now you have a lighting artist or a VFX artist or an animation artist or a tech artist. These are very different skills. Now, if I was to create a skills matrix for every single job title and every single job that we had, for every single engine that we had, and you know, kind of, it's very different if you're making a game that is a kind of a packaged game for a PS5 versus a mobile game. You might have a similar job title, but you're going to be working on different engines. You're going to be working in different kind of settings, etc., etc. The teams that you're working in a 200 team versus a 20-person team, again, is very different. So those become out of date. And it particularly comes out of date if you're working in technology, because technology just moves along. So what are some of the things that we can help our people with for career? Because one of the biggest things in the games industry is, I mean, I love working in it because mastery and learning is, you know, really high on the agenda for people. But equally, when they come to Sumo, they're putting their careers in our hands, and we have a responsibility to also be guiding them through that and to be providing the right support, mentoring, coaching around that. So we have created a framework that talks about these bigger skills that I'm talking about. So that talks about communication. Communication at a junior level looks different than communication at a very senior level. Influence and impact looks very different at a junior level as it does to a senior level. My knowledge and expertise looks different at a junior level. But what we've not done is said particular, you know, engine, coding, da 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 da. Instead, it's a broader term in terms of, you know, is an expert within your field, is able to see emerging trends, is able to create documentation and mentoring, like all of this stuff, incredibly useful, and keeps you and ensures that you're keeping all the time as close to up to date as possible, because you've broadened it out. You're not kind of in the trees. Now, saying that, it is different for regulated businesses. For regulated businesses, there is going to be a skills matrix, but it is set. You know, you're going to be asked, if you're in the financial institution and you're a mortgage advisor, for example, there are set regulations that you need to be meeting, and therefore there are set skills. But still within that sort of business, you're still going to have these bigger impact skills, such as communication, the way that your relationship building with clients, etc., etc. That again is going to build the higher up you go in your career and the more experience you get.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, as you said, in the regulatory sort of in the businesses heavily regulated, the skill matrices will change as frequently as the legislation, basically. So
exactly.
they basically stay current for a bit longer.
For a bit, mind you, regulation, how much did that change over COVID? So, you know, you could argue with that's always changing as well, but yeah.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. So I guess just to summarize that, and again, how I see it is like, we really, as organizations, we really we really benefit the most from this sort of the top-down approach when it comes to the compliance, regulatory training or processes. But at the same time, we should absolutely be tapping into the sort of the bottom-up model, the more agile skills, where, you know, we listen to what learners want to learn, their interests, and we facilitate it. So I guess moving on to the new role of the L&D teams, L&D professionals in this new reality, where we need to listen to learners, we need to listen to what they want to learn, and we can tap into the sort of the user-generated skills and so on. And I guess, how does it impact the L&D role?
So, you know, we're probably in learning and development because we really enjoy it. You know, really enjoy helping others grow. Really enjoy facilitating a growth mindset, all of that stuff, self-development. We've probably all got like loads of self-help books on our shelves or on our Kindles, a podcast. Like, we love this stuff, we love it. But equally, we're probably one of the small teams within an organization. So it's a tough position to be in. And a lot of the time it's integrated into HR. So maybe you're a learning and development team, but then actually you have HR business partners and they're going out and they're doing the consulting and they're coming back and saying, hey, this is the stuff that we need. And what I would urge you is to become real partners with the business or with your HR partners, to be going out and understanding more of the operation. And the more you're able to understand actually what is going on in that context, how are people working, where are there opportunities to learn within the workflow that they have, the more you work inside of that, rather than kind of as a back, kind of as an office over here somewhere that works kind of like, well, theoretically it should sort of work like this. Actually go in, find out, what's going on, get on the shop floor, whatever that shop floor looks like. How does that learning happen? For games who have retrospectives, where is the learning in that? Where are the moments that there's already an allowance for learning? So, for example, reviews, like appraisals, if you have them, they are, as a paradigm, they're allowed to give feedback. You're allowed to talk about your learning. Where else can you create these moments of allowing that? So that's the first thing I would say, is really understand understand the business, understand kind of the flow of work for people as much as you can, understand where the learning takes place currently and where people access their learning from. The other thing is then I come to, and this is something I think that I've really learned over my time in L&D, because I'm a people pleaser, right? So I would, when I started out and people would say, Jenny, we want some like line management training on, I don't know, on giving effective feedback. I'd be like, okay, let me like write some stuff and let's go out and let's deliver it. And people had a great time, and I'm sure that they learned some stuff, but did it really affect change? I question that now. Now my approach is, of course, yeah, I would love to help you with that. I would like to do that as a partnership. And that's how we then approach it. So, person, line manager, person head of department, whatever it might be, we're gonna do this as a partnership. Why is this important to you? What has happened in the lead up for you calling me today and saying that we need this? Tell me the story. Okay, so we've now got that understanding. But the training element, you're going to sort of get throughout this, that I'm kind of thinking imagery and metaphor. But the training element is like, if you're growing a plant, the training is the seeds. Now, if I just throw a whole bunch of seeds on on some soil that is not turned, that has not been watered, hasn't got any fertilizer, it's just a bunch of seeds that's just going to sit on the top. And maybe if you're lucky, one will seep in and one will grow and it'll produce a beautiful flower. It's unlikely. So what is it that you need? Well, you need the soil to be right. That's your culture. The culture needs to be right, or the system needs to be right. So if we're talking about effective feedback, what's the culture like for feedback? Do people have psychological safety, or do they feel that there's a blame culture? Like what's really, openly just what's going on. There's no judgment here. Well, let's just understand what's really happening to get you to the point of today where you're asking for this. So we want to turn that soil. We want to make sure, okay, so whilst we have this learning and development intervention of maybe, kind of effective feedback, we also want to make sure that when it is then applied, when it's put into the soil, that the soil is right for that learning. That when they've gone back, that there's opportunities to try it out, that there's opportunities to learn. We talk about like cohorts. If I'm learning with you, Martin, I might want to try it out with you as my buddy, as my cohort, before I go and try it out for real out there in the big bad world. So where's that soil? Like, how are we going to cultivate that? Span of control, there's no feedback because managers don't have time. Okay, how many people are they managing? 30. Well, it could be the soil might not be right for really effective feedback if they're managing that many people, for example. So make sure that soil is right. But then we also need to make sure that we've got enough water and sun. And that comes in after the training. So afterwards, we're talking about in the flow of work, where am I now going to experiment? And one of the things as well is that I never now create action plans at the end of, so before again, my learning is I used to say, so you've done this training, now what's your action plan? What are you going to go and do? Now I say, what are you going to go and experiment with? Because it might be rubbish the first time you do it. My 4-year-old is learning to write. She's learning to write, learning. The teacher doesn't say, okay, here's how to write dad. And she's like, okay, got it, dad. No, man. There are times that she does it perfectly. There are times that the D goes the wrong way around. There's times that the A. That is like your learning. I've learned now how to give effective feedback. The first time I did it, man, I just really messed up. The demons in my head got in the way. Where is the sun that is going to give me some more resources to go and reflect on that? Where is the water that is my buddy that I can then go, I really messed that up? And for them to, for you, Martin, to say to me, don't worry about it. Like, let's talk about it. What happened? Dust yourself off. Try it again. Keep writing, dad. You'll get it one day, kind of thing. So when we're saying in terms of supporting his, kind of like rounding that up, what are my biggest tips? My biggest tip is moving away from, the bottom that we said content. What is the content? Okay, you want this? Let me give you content. To right up here, what is going on in the organization? Where is it that you're heading? But also, what is the cultural context that we're working in? And what maybe systemically do we need to have as our anchor point and really make sure that we've aligned in order that when we're moving up and we've created this training, that it's really going to land. And that frustrates people. I'm not going to lie. They're like, I just want the training. Okay, I can deliver the training. And this is my other tip. I say, that's cool. But at the start of the training, I'm going to invite you in as head of department, line manager, whatever. And I would like you to say to the group, why this training, why you, and why now? And if you can't do that, it's not the right time. So if all else fails, if it's kind of like we haven't got time to do this big piece of work, okay, just those 3 things. If you can come on and if you can do that, we'll rock and roll. And we'll create a partnership, your role within this, my role within that. But that's my biggest thing, is actually rather than saying, yes, let me go do it and let me go and and make these things and we'll all have a nice time. And we'll create a happy sheet and we'll all have said what a great time we've had. Let's really get into what we really need right now. And sometimes that's not learning. Sometimes it's something else. But as a learning and development professional, what I'm doing is that I'm helping people with the mindset and continuing that change and continuing that growth.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So I guess to continue the subject of the role of L&D and maybe the centrally or the top-down content, you did touch on the one of your team members learning the Power BI from TikTok. I agree and admire that. That's just awesome. Never thought of TikTok as being this platform where you can actually go and learn Power BI. I would have gone to YouTube, right? But obviously with this sort of emerging trend where it's more learner centric, and we need to sort of listen and tap into the user generated skills. So even what they're telling us interests them. I guess, how does it affect our provision of learning? Because obviously, in my opinion, exactly what you said, it's not just looking at, okay, so it looks like everyone wants to learn about the AI. And obviously, this is not just me then researching AI subjects and posting some content. I guess if people tell us they want to learn about AI, I'm sure there's also a bunch of people who would like to talk and have some ideas about AI. So that would bring us to what we call the UGC, the user-generated content. Any thoughts on this, on how we can tap into that?
Yeah, definitely. I think exactly like you're saying, following following the interest rather than being the custodian of what skills are allowed and what skills aren't allowed to be developed. Like, wow, what a job, like it's just, there's too much change. It's just, you're like, it's not going to work. So yeah, I would say, like, first of all, that you're only going to have a small percentage of people who are actually wanting to create user-generated content. So don't be disheartened if you have created some wonderful system and not many people are sharing, because I don't have a YouTube channel, I don't have a TikTok channel. I post sometimes on LinkedIn. I don't write books or research. There's lots of things that I don't. But I'm here today sharing my knowledge. Why? Because you invited me. I didn't stand up and go, do you know what I'm going to talk about? Let's talk about a modern mindset, and I'm going to get on and I'm going to do a video. No, it was you inviting me to share. You know what, Jenny? I think you've got some things to say on this. And I'd really love to do this with you. And hopefully it will help other people on their journey. Does that sound like something you'd be interested in? Yeah, that sounds like something I could be interested in. So that invitation rather than an expectation is really key. In terms of then, following that interest as well, it's then, so there's a couple of stories that I have on this. First of all, actually, if we're like kind of like, before all of kind of AI really kicked off and all the rest of it, so when we cast our mind back to the start of the pandemic, if we may, so we had an office manager, and so we had Thrive as a platform. We launched it 3 weeks into the pandemic, and of course all the skills were suddenly switching around. We were very much a work in the office, work in the studio kind of affair. IT department did an amazing job at getting everybody's equipment home, but it wasn't the way that we collaborated. It wasn't the way that we worked. We had to learn a whole new set of systems, but also the overwhelm. There was so much resilience and, mind skills that suddenly we needed to be able to cultivate just like really, really quickly. There was so much fear. There was so much overwhelm from having kind of suddenly everyone in the same house all together, keeping on top of kind of what you could, anxiety. There was lots of skills that we suddenly very, very quickly had to acquire. And so on our learning platform, we had someone who started to post really great content around how to set up your home, maybe a flat. Maybe it's in a studio apartment. How do you make it so it's a work environment? And then how do you make it back into a relaxation, sort of a more relaxing environment? How to definitely, one of my favorite videos that she posted was how to definitely feel fear and anxiety, like how to definitely spiral out of control as kind of, as a bit of like how to, if you're going to do it, let's like really go for it. That was really lovely. She was one of the most followed people. So in Thrive, you can follow people who you like the content that they are delivering. So there's a function where you can start to follow, and then you can start to see more of what they're posting. So she was the most followed person in the whole of Sumo. Her job it wasn't in HR. Her job wasn't anything to do with kind of mental health. But as it transpired, she was a volunteer at the Samaritans. So she had an interest in all of this, and so of course, like, she had resources just there to be able to share. And my goodness, people really, really relished her updates, her videos, her all the stuff that she posted. So that's one of the things, is that your users might have brilliant skills and yet not be deemed by the company as subject matter experts. You may have, I remember when I worked at Wilco as well, there was one time I went into a shop. We were just about to come into doing kind of learning platforms. And I was in a shop with someone. He only worked, we'd only been working there for a little bit. I think whether he just worked at the weekend or kind of a few hours in the week, I can't quite remember, to be honest. It was a few years ago. But he talked about unboxing, and he talked about how he just done for fun with some of his friends, kind of unboxing of some stuff at Wilco, because we had a creative team that created kind of own products. And so the stores would get them and they'd say, oh, what does this do? Why is this different? So he talked about he would want to have this unboxing series. That's brilliant user-generated content. It was funny, it was informative, it was really great. Was he the subject matter expert? No, he wasn't from the design team. He wasn't a supervisor. He was someone that had a great skill for humor, for engagement, for all of this stuff. So it's seeking out those people and creating an invitation to share. Then in terms of some of the other things that we've done at CMO, I have to say, like our managing director is like amazing, and I really enjoy working with him. He's very he understands the idea of learning and continuous learning and that kind of culture and all of that, which is awesome to work in. And he wanted to create a conference where we brought everyone together to share their knowledge. And what's special about this conference, so we're doing it again. So last year was the first time we did it. This is the second time that we're doing it this year. So we've got over 1,000 people coming, 1,000 game developers coming. And the best thing about this conference, it is people within Sumo presenting their ideas. And we are talking about people who are technical directors, and we were also talking about junior producers. So I set very much from an early stage that a narrative that everybody is a learner and everyone is a teacher. It doesn't matter whether you've been in the industry for 25 days or 25 years. What you have to say and your experiences really matter. So I think setting that as a kind of standard is really important. But then also, what does this conference do? Is it means that people are again invited to share their content. So this is outside of a digital environment. Of course, it will be filmed and it'll be streamed, and people have it on our learning platform to refer back to. But again, it's a great career development opportunity, and people see that also. Oh my gosh, it doesn't necessarily create a linear opportunity. It creates a breadth of opportunity, creates an environment where I get to upskill myself on my communication and my public speaking, and we provide all sorts of training digitally and kind of in person and virtually as well to help people as they go towards that. So you can tap into it in these different ways, but also in these ways that people want to share. If you said to me, Jenny, would you write an article about modern day learning? I'd be like, nah, I'm all right, thanks. You say to me, you're quite chatty. Could we have a chat about it? Like, yeah, I'm really happy to do that. And like I say, and hopefully some of what I said will help other people. Other people will be the other way around. Would you do a presentation or a chat about it? No, thanks. Would you write me a wiki? Yeah, I can do that. Would you do me a presentation at this big event? Yeah, I'd love to do that. Will you find like, I've seen that you've got a master's in, this is someone that we do have a master's in psychology. I'd really love, is there anything that really stuck out to you from that course? Any books, any learning, any podcasts that you could put together as a playlist, because that might help other people who are also in manager positions and understanding mindset. Yeah, I'd love to do that. So invitation to tap into. But yeah, AI is an interesting one because it's gained a lot of a lot of interest. You can imagine in the games industry, it's like
absolutely
massive. We've got quite a few talks at this conference, and it's controversial. And you've got to be okay with controversial as well. We have some people speaking where other people won't agree with it. And that's part of the learning process as well. I mean, today there's probably some people that are like, I agree with some stuff that doesn't, I'm not sure I'll take that. That's okay. It's like cooking. I might not like that recipe. I might add in a little bit more sauce to it. I might add a bit more spice. I don't want that spice. Controversial. So that's part of the learning process as well. So the other tip is then don't be the one that says like this is the content that will be okay, particularly with stuff that's emerging, and this is the content that's not. Instead, allowing some controversy and being okay with that, because that's what cutting edge knowledge is. it's controversial as it starts to evolve.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I just feel that the choice we have as learning professionals is whether we will allow and drive these conversations within the organization, or whether we will just let people go to all the other platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, where these conversations will happen. The question is whether we will allow them and facilitate them within the organization, or whether people will think, you know what, I can't really talk about it at work. This is maybe too cutting edge, or this is just my thinking, and maybe I'm not quite comfortable sharing within the organization, but maybe I've got a really popular channel on YouTube or TikTok, right? And the question is, why not allow people to do that within the organization, within the platforms of the company? So, question, you partially answered that, but I know that there's always within a lot of companies, there's always a bit of a discussion around user-generated content. That's a bit scary, because what if people say something inappropriate? What if, like, we must be able to at least control, approve it before things are posted. And if I remember well, on your platform, people are just encouraged and allowed to post anything they want. Any advice for somebody who might be thinking, no, that's a bit too, I'm a bit worried about people taking advantage of that?
So I would strongly say to talk to other L&D professionals that also have this in their company, and ask them, has this happened, and how have you dealt with it? Like, inappropriate behavior is going to happen, regardless. So, but you wouldn't stop people going to work just because they might say something inappropriate. And this is part of work. If you are really struggling, thinking, oh my goodness, like the rate at which skill, we've got this huge problem, there's a huge skill gap, we need to address it, but also we don't want people to share, we don't want to create that environment. Well, you're not really going to get to this place, because you're stopping the thing that's going to allow you to get to that place. So I had I did get challenged when, again, like I say, kind of when I was in retail, bringing in a learning platform. It was the same as kind of Sumo. And I think, I don't know of any learning platform where your name isn't next to what you're posting. So I could also email the whole company something inappropriate if I really wanted to. I'm not going to do that. Just like I'm not going to post something inappropriate on a learning platform that's got my name and my contact details and my face next to it. So that's the same on kind of on any learning platform. And so I think, I said, really, gosh, could anybody, I even got the question one time, can anybody post, like, they could post kind of anything? What if they're, what if it didn't quite say it like this? Like, what if it's stupid? And I said, well, it's a good job we don't hire stupid people. Like, it to me, you either trust the people that you employ, or you don't. And if you don't, you're going to continue to have a skills gap, and you're not going to develop at the rate that you could do by trusting people. Because when you've got that psychological safety to be able to really share, to really be able to say what you think, to really be able to create growth, like, those are the organizations that are going to keep up with change. So yeah, within my time at Sumo, I think we've had, within Thrive, and I'm sure other platforms have the same. So Thrive have a report functionality. And so we did educate, so when we did launch, we did have guidance. So I would say have guidance around what the platform is, education around, what its intent is for, particularly if you're letting everybody post anything. Like, is it anything from kind of like, hey, like, look what I've had for lunch, or is it not? Is it more kind of like, here's a tip for customer service? Like, make sure that people understand what the platform is about. And then but then also show people where the report functionality is if there is something. So within like Thrive, there's a report, and then it will send straight to the admins to say this is inappropriate. And it might be inappropriate for lots of different reasons. Might be like inappropriate, like as we would think, or it might be it's out of date, or it might be I don't think this content is actually quite right. I would want to maybe check out this content. So we've had a platform for almost 3 years, 2 years, something like that, 2.5 maybe, and we've only had this 3 times. And none of them have been because someone has posted something stupid. It's because the information is out of date. That's happened twice. And once there was a sense check. You know, it's kind of like, it would be like someone posting how to use a fire extinguisher, and actually the fire extinguishers have kind of moved on. Can we get a fact check on this? Is the right extinguisher being used? And that's it. And how much content have we had? Like over like tens of thousands, if not 100, over 100,000 pieces of content. I think we might be in the hundreds. I'm not sure. We're definitely in the tens.
We have to check.
We have to check that. We're definitely in the tens of thousands of content. Tens of thousands of content. And how many have been flagged? 3. I think you're going to be okay, particularly when people can't post anonymously.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, it goes back to something we discussed in our regular meetings, that, whenever you open the platform and bring in conversations to keep them within the organization, you need to be comfortable with just a little bit of noise, because that's just the natural consequence of it, right?
And I think that's there are going to be different opinions of what is good content as well. So, we've had we also have a Udemy. So someone had posted up a Udemy effective one-to-one meeting training that they posted up, and someone else just contacted me and said, I think I found a better one. Well, maybe they had, or maybe it was just a better one for them. That's okay. Post that as well. And why, and what we ask people, why you also found that useful, because different things are going to speak to different people at different moments in their career and at different, challenges that they're going through at that point in time.
Yeah, makes sense. Perfect. Thank you. So it is 10:47 already. It just feels like we've been talking for 20 minutes, but it's been nearly 50 minutes. Fantastic. So I guess I will ask one more question maybe, and then we'll see whether we've got any good questions in the comments. But what do you think are some of the challenges to this sort of approach where we the bottom-up approach to skills and user-generated content, maybe?
Sorry, what's the question, Martin? Sorry.
What are the challenges, do you think?
From bottom-up kind of user-generated skills, all from the learners. I think, my belief is that you still need to have a framework that works at kind of a more of a helicopter level. So the framework that we have in place is agnostic of department, of what we call, like I say, discipline, like art, etc., because it's talking more about an expectation and a learning objective, if you like, around bigger skills like communication, influence, skills and knowledge. But rather than going down into the detail, it's kind of like my skills and knowledge at the beginning. I'll be asking for a lot of mentorship. By the time I'm kind of at a more senior level, I'll be expected to be able to document and mentor others, and also show how I'm keeping up to date with latest trends. At a more junior level, that's not so much an expectation. So I don't think, actually I'm going to caveat that a little bit. I think if you don't have a framework at all, then people don't know where they're going. It gets messy, particularly in a bigger organization. The caveat that I'm going to give on that is unless you're a startup. If you're a startup, the biggest thing is the ability to learn, and the ability to learn very quickly, because you're everything. You're the finance person, the HR person, the learning person, the operations person, the facilities person. Even when you're a team of kind of 25, you are all learning to get the business going. You don't necessarily need a framework, but once you start to hit a level, then actually defining kind of those roles, but also a progression track, so that people can start to see where they have opportunities to learn, I believe is incredibly helpful for the individual to understand where they are and also understand where they can start to develop.
So the hybrid approach, having the top down and the bottom up working in conjunction to make the organization better.
Yeah, it is exactly that. It's all around creating an a learning ecosystem rather than one or the other.
Yeah, perfect. That makes sense. And I guess just checking some of the questions we had. So let's see. Oh, it's 10:51. I wonder. Let me actually check some of the questions we've had asked in the chat. So, we've got one here about the 70-20-10 model. So organizations talk about 70-20-10 learning model. How do you best embed this into teams for individuals' development?
Sorry, I've also seen Matt's put in like 5 myths about the 50-20-10. So thank you for putting that. I am really going to read that. Sorry, I shouldn't. That's why I haven't had the comments on, because then I start to go, oh, this is like, yeah, these are really interesting. So sorry, 70-20-10 learning model, how to best implement it into teams for development. Caveating that with, I'm about to read something about the myth busting around it as well. So thank you, Matt, for sharing that. This is exactly what we're talking about. Just here in these comments, we're learning from each other. This is exactly what we're talking about. So I love it. So let's just kind of roll back. What do we mean by this? So what we mean by this is the model describes that kind of when you're going on a learning journey, 10% of it will happen through more structured learning interventions, so such as a training session. 20% will happen like in the comments or kind of us talking, so in a social sort of environment, talking things through. And 70% of the actual learning will take place in the flow of work. So when I try it out, I fall flat on my face and I get up and I try it again. So, kind of taking it back to a kid that is just learning to eat, there'll be the introduction of food and kind of like, this is what you do. And we do that like here, that's the 10%, like this is what you do. 20% is like looking and kind of like looking around and how and what's the social setting, like, do I throw my food, do I put it in my mouth, let me learn from other people. 70% of it is actually just trying it out, chewing it and gagging, trying again, etc. So
I guess just to, I'm sorry to interject, like I'm personally very skeptical of the model. I agree that whenever you learn, there is the element of sort of the theory and then actually trying it out and learning from your peers. We can agree about 70-20-10, but we know that part of the learning is actually doing it.
Exactly.
So maybe let's
I
simplify
think,
this here.
Exactly. So it's a model. Is it really, like you say, is it really 10%? Is it really 20%? Or is it really 70%? I don't know. But it's just to give you an indication that really what you're trying to drive home is that training will not solve your problem, is how I take it. Right? Going on a 1.5 hour course on radical candor for giving feedback is not going to solve your inner gremlins and the sweat that you get when you need to give someone feedback that you think is going to react in a certain way, or that you don't like them, or that you really like them, or whatever that might be. So I take this more as kind of like, actually, how do we maybe so how can we embed this into teams? So some of the things that we do in Sumo is, where possible, if we have a set training, so we have a career development program, for example. So there's development that happens, there's some workshops that then happen, but also Agnieszka, my team, does an amazing job also creating cohorted learning. So she creates a Teams channel. So we use Microsoft Teams. You could use Slack, Discord, like all sorts of, WhatsApp, all sorts of different things. She creates then a learning community within that. So whilst they then are in between those workshops, they're continuing to talk to each other. They're continuing to also pull in different resources, like, oh, we learned about this. This is also what I found on the internet. I've also watched this as a result. I tried this the other day. Is there anyone else that's tried it that I can talk to? about this with. So that cohort of learning means that the learning is continuing to happen in a very safe environment where you're in a group with other people who are learning as well. It's a bit like learning a different language. I feel very confident when I'm in a classroom learning a language with other people learning it. I'm less confident when I then go into a doctor and I have to try and make an appointment for myself in that different language. So that learning environment is key, because I feel comfortable there experimenting and talking and being open. But then the application, again, is kind of like, where are you allowing for that? And that, again, sometimes we miss out because we're so focused on the intervention itself rather than either the impact that it's going to have and how it's actually going to work in the flow of work, or is it really it goes back to that soil, is it really needed in the flow of work, or is there something else that needs to be addressed in order for the learning to have the impact that you wanted it to have?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So I guess that question has been answered. We've got 4 minutes left. We don't have any sort of big further questions here. We've got an interesting one. Let's try. So somebody mentioned with 22,000 users, we have a lot of flags for user-generated content, and managing this is a challenge. And should we be implementing a rigid policy for users? I do have some ideas. Would you like to answer that?
Yeah, go. Yeah.
Perfect. So I guess my advice, working with or having worked and working with a number of customers, very often it comes down to also educating the learners, making sure that they really understand what makes a good and valuable content. Having this sort of terms and conditions or code of conduct as soon as you log into the platform, having this sort of pop up so that you acknowledge also this is not a one-off exercise. Because if somebody has been with the company or on the platform for a year or 2 years, this is long in the past, and a good idea maybe would be to also have regular campaigns or regular content reminding people, hey, we absolutely want you to be part of the conversation. Just be mindful of the following things. So the user education never ends, and that's my advice, basically.
Definitely. I think the other thing as well is have a look at those flags. Like, is there a pattern that's happening? Can you report on that? If things are out of date, is it from a particular department? If it's from a particular department, maybe it's that they've kind of content that they put out on how to train on a system is now the system has moved on and now it's out of date, for example. So I would just say, actually looking at what is the reporting or the flags telling you, and also if you have got lots and lots and lots, what's your system for filtering? What's your triage system for that as well? Because sometimes flags are just people don't like it. Doesn't mean it's like we've just talked about. I might not like spicy food, doesn't mean that someone else that does like spicy food will find that interesting. So it can be all sorts of things that people might flag it.
Lovely. Thank you, Jenny. So 10:58, I guess we don't have any further questions. I am happy. So Jenny, thank you ever so much for agreeing to speak to me. And as always, like I've just realized that I don't think we've ever had an uninteresting conversation. And this just continues the tradition. Thank you for joining. And I guess that's
listen, I love all things learning and development, all discussions like that. So if there's anybody here that's heard some things today, I would really love to hear the things that have resonated, the things that you think, yeah, I'm going to take that. And I'd also really love to hear the things about, I would like to challenge you on some of those things. So my open invitation for everybody who is watching today is to, kind of on LinkedIn, let us know, carry on the conversation and learning together as well.
Perfect. And feel free to connect and message Jenny and me. We are always up for a good conversation, obviously.
Obviously.
Obviously. Perfect. Well,
thanks,
thank you, Jenny.
Have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.